I'm personally not the biggest fan of double uploads, like two big videos. I'm fine with doing like a short, but two big videos in a row. I hate to do it, but I'm gonna have to do it today and tomorrow because, well, that's what happens. But either way, I saw the Boogeyman earlier today. There wasn't really much background I knew about the Boogeyman. I don't even know if I had seen a trailer of it at this point. It is a brand new adaptation of a Stephen King short film, which I'm pretty sure is from the 70s. And the other thing I do know about this is that this was supposed to be streaming on Hulu, but positive test screenings and on top of Stephen King himself insisting that it goes in theaters, it got sent into theaters. Unfortunately, it's going to be crushed at the box office because it came out this weekend, which is the same weekend as the new Spider-Man. So what are you going to do about it? When it comes to the story, the Boogeyman is essentially what you think it is. There is this monster hiding in this family's closet, and it is terrorizing this family, so this family has got to stop it. There is much more at play here and other plot elements. I don't want to spoil them, though, but I do know that apparently this strays a good amount from the original, like, novella or short story, I think it's what it is, that King originally wrote. But don't back me up on that. I didn't really get the chance to look at that before I started recording. I found out after watching this that the same writing team behind this movie also wrote the two Quiet Place movies along with 65 from earlier this year. I loved the Quiet Place movies. I thought 65 was a little disappointing. I think this lands right in the middle, honestly. I feel like this was pretty good. Sophie Thatcher is the lead of this movie, and while I had heard her name, I know she's in the series Yellow Jackets right now. This is the first time that I had seen her in anything. I think she did a pretty good job. Messina also brought in a pretty good lead performance, especially after a great role in Air, which I saw a while ago. I'm going to talk about that soon. But there are two scene stealers in this that I really do think that need to be shouted out in this. The first one is Vivien Lyra Blair. If you don't know that name, if you watched the Obi-Wan Kenobi limited series from last year, she played young Princess Leia in that, and she is essentially a lead role in this, and she does great in it. I would say she's one of the best performances of the whole movie, and just has the most to work with in terms of like emotional range, and she knocks it out of the park in pretty much every scene she's in. I would put David Dastmalchian on the same level as her too. He's only in pretty much one scene in this, but he is effectively creepy, which is a good summary of the movie itself. But David Dastmalchian, I can never figure out how to say his last name, but I really do feel like he is so good at playing someone that's creepy. And he, again, with the one scene he has in this, he knocks it out of the park. It's very early on in the movie, it sets the tone for the whole thing, and it got me ready to go for this. I forgot to put this down in my notes, but also the effects and the lighting of the Boogeyman itself were really well done. It was a good blend of what I think was practical stuff and a good amount of CGI to heighten up the more like supernatural elements of how the creature looked, and most of it's hidden the entire time. Actually, a huge chunk of this is much more like atmospheric horror than like jump scare horror, but it does lean more into jump scares. I enjoyed it much more in the first two-thirds where it is just full-on like atmospheric horror. I gotta admit, that's the only way I can describe it, but it is not full of jump scares and it keeps building up tension. And there are a few jump scares that work in this, but as we go towards the end, it keeps getting heavier with jump scares, and that's the one thing I didn't want from this movie. But I'm glad that most of it was more tension based and just keeping that really creepy atmosphere throughout the whole movie. Yeah, there's not much else to say about the Boogeyman. I thought it was pretty good. It's effectively creepy in the right ways that it needed to be. I loved most of the horror elements in this, but I do feel like it tapered off a little bit in the third act. I do think Vivien Lyra Blair and David Dastmalchian steal the show completely. Those scenes with those characters are really the only ones that are sticking with me right now. I'm going to give the Boogeyman a 7 out of 10. If you don't see it in theaters, because I'm sure it's probably going to leave because it's going to get so crowded right now in theaters. But once it hits streaming, I think you should definitely watch it. I think it's one of the better horror movies that have come out recently in this style of like monster in your closet and like that genre of horror movies, and I think this would be up your alley. All right, those are my quick thoughts on the Boogeyman. My question for you now is, what is your favorite modern monster movie? Or actually, I'll change that real quick. What's your favorite Stephen King adaptation? I haven't really talked about Stephen King like adaptations and just his work in general, but I am a big fan of him and his work and a good amount of his adaptations. My personal favorite is honestly tied between The Shining and Doctor Sleep. But either way, I feel like there's a good treasure trove of good and bad Stephen King adaptations. So, let me know what your favorite Stephen King movie is. Let me know what you think of The Boogeyman if you've seen it. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next video. See ya!